Hey, just a quick note before the episode starts. We wanted to say thank you to Games Workshop for making this episode possible by providing a review copy of the Warband. A thank you to our Patreons for financially supporting us. And a thank you to all the listeners out there who make this project worth doing. Thanks all. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to What the Hex, your source for Warhammer Underworlds in under 30 ways to identify a witch. Today I'm your host, Phil, and joining me as always is my fellow Inquisitor, Davy. How are you doing, Davy?
I'm good, and I'm definitely not a witch.
No, definitely not. No,
Yep.
Of course not. So we've got some new models to talk about today.
Oh my god, at last. Oh, thank you so much.
Finally. It was, 3 weeks from the time that they announced, like, here's the full warband, we'll show you all the models, and like everything's ready to go, before we heard anything else.
Yeah.
And it was the pre-order announcement.
Yeah. Something like that.
So, man, finally.
Yeah.
And I suppose, because we can give some context here, we're recording on the 9th, so yesterday, I hadn't thought about this.
Oh, yeah, my gosh.
August
right?
8th turned out to be Corn Day, because it's
Yeah.
8/8. Which, cool. I suppose that's a nice little marketing gimmick. They had corn for all the different ranges.
I thought it was great. I love that little tweet there. That's fun.
A little spin to be like, hey, here's a reason for us to like celebrate talking about all these new releases for Chaos.
Yeah. Why is Corn Day relevant to us, though?
Yeah, well, we surprisingly got another reveal for the next warband after Haskell's Hexbane, and it was like, okay, cool. Corn, which people had been saying it was going to be Corn, but there was really nothing to back that up. We now know for sure it is definitely Corn.
For sure. Gore Chosen of Drom.
Yes, Gore Chosen of Drom. So we do know that the leader's name is going to be Drom. The warrior that we saw was Hax something?
Herax. Skullgrinder Herax. Yeah.
It was very close to Haskell. And I was like, this seems strange that their names would be so similar. But yeah, so I don't know. We really don't have a ton of information other than that we got to see his uninspired side. So there's a new mechanic for them, and kind of look like maybe they're going to be similar to Magor's in some respects.
Yeah, I mean they operate around Blood Tithe, so
it's cool. Folks
familiar with the game, the Age of Sigmar game, know that is kind of how they summon demons or do kind of cool. So you think of it as like sort of ritual counters sort of thing. So
yeah.
And we know how he gets Blood Tithe. We don't know if that's a rule that's going to follow other fighters around, or if he's the only one who has Blood Tithe, or what. So a lot of questions, but still super fun to see.
Many questions. And I guess just because I have seen it talked about a lot in the Discords, so I figure it's worth mentioning. People are like kind of going nuts about the formatting of his ability on his weapon, because they're like, it doesn't have like a May clause and stuff. And like I have to imagine that they're prepping for a cleaner, like more streamlined formatting so they can cut down on words in the next season. And since they're designing ahead of time, they're probably just like just cutting stuff out, and they're like, you can read between the lines, and instead everybody's like, well, it doesn't say that you can choose, so you have to do it. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So for folks listening, that's my take. I guess everybody can let us know their own takes, but I think we're being a little bit intentionally obtuse here. But should be interesting. I am excited to see the rest of the warband. I think it's way too early to make any further guesses about how they're going to function and how good they're going to be. But
sure, we've seen one uninspired side of one fighter and one upgrade for that fighter.
Yeah, and a strange like fighter specific upgrade at that. So I don't know that it's like telling about anything about the warband.
Yeah.
I will say, I guess I would like to throw out guesses. Well, we can tinfoil hat still. I think it'll be a 4-fighter warband because
Okay.
they're Gore Chosen, and
Yeah.
in the Gore Chosen box game, there were 4 fighters in the original Gore Chosen. So
Okay.
I'm just going to guess that it's going to be the 4 members of a Gore Chosen, and they're all going to be teamed up to go do the whole ritual thing, which would be a Slaughter Priest, a Skull Grinder, which is the guy we just saw, Exalted Deathbringer, and
maybe an aspiring Deathbringer.
And it's an aspiring Deathbringer. So you've got the 2 different Deathbringers. So I would, and then I think that way we would have like a natural Danglebro in the aspiring Deathbringer. But that's just my hot take.
That'd be pretty wild when they get their Age of Sigmar rules, because that's like 4 hero level characters all piled into one.
It would be very similar to how the vampires are all vampire princes or whatever.
I think I missed that fact. That's, okay, so not unprecedented.
Or at least that's how people were using them, because they're very easy stand-ins, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So,
all right.
But yeah. So that's cool. That was a surprise little thing of them being like, "Hey, pre-order, and by the way, next warband."
I know. Really.
But that's not what we actually came here to talk about today.
Oh no.
No, we came here to talk about some witch hunters.
Yes,
and they're pretty cool. So, just so folks know what the general topic is going to be, we're going to talk just some general rundowns and first impressions of the warband, and then we did actually get a game in with them already, so that we could get a sense for how they actually play out on the table. Which is pretty cool.
We'll be able to tell you, kind of, this is our first impression, and this is how it stood up or did not once on the table.
Yeah. And we did play championship, so it's not just straight out of the box. We tried to come up with what we thought made sense for their strategies.
Yeah.
But before we dive in, do you have any community shoutouts?
Well, as you mentioned, we're recording this on the 9th. This is going to drop on the 13th. And so I'm going to give a preemptive shout out to all those people dumping content all over the place on the 13th.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Deluge.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and predict that shortly after you hear this, Underworld's DB will have stayed up all night in Australia and made that possible. I tell you what, building a deck without that was hard.
Oh man, having to build in physical cards without being able to look at a database.
Some kind of crude peasant. I don't know. It was terrible. Yeah.
Pretty awful.
Yeah.
We look forward to having all the cards available in the builders as soon as possible.
Speaking of which, and this is what the hex has been going on with me. I wasn't able to participate in some things recently because of family visiting and then a family emergency. But what I did end up was a lot of time kind of sitting in waiting rooms and such with the laptop, and so this will be the first release where we release a accompanying blog. So because there will be other sources that are doing a blow by blow on cards, we're taking this tack with the battle report and what we learned that from practical experience. But if you want a blow by blow releasing concurrently with this episode, there will be one blog article that covers Haskell Hexbane's Hunters and all their faction cards, and then one article that has all the universals with it. And you can take a look through and laugh at my first impressions of those. So, yeah.
Well, I will say I don't think our first impressions will be any better or worse than anyone else's first impressions.
Ours will be 5% better. That's a what the heck's guarantee.
There you go, guaranteed. How we judge that percentage, nobody knows.
Yeah,
but it's
guarantees not guaranteed.
Yes. I guess if I'm going to run down what the hex has been going on with me,
please do.
So we've been hyping up this tournament that we were going to run locally. Did not get as many people out as we had hoped, but the people we did get out had a really great tournament. one of the closest tournaments in Underworlds that I've ever seen. Everyone finished, so nobody went undefeated. That's important to note. And then everyone finished within about 1 or 2 games difference of each other. So it was exceptionally close games all the way across, and there was really good play from everybody involved. So really great. I'm sure we will figure out another one to do in about 3 months again, although that starts to run into holiday time. So we'll let folks know once we know, but we'd like to keep these going. They've been fun. And I think people get a kick out of sort of ratcheting up the competitiveness level a little bit. So
yeah. Special shout out to Alex and Zach, who came up from Illinois, and apologies to our locals, to whom we did a disservice by not sufficiently prepping them for for the Exiled Dead.
Oh yeah. So not very many people have even played against the Exiled Dead in our local meta, and that's somewhat on us. But I mean, they're just not my cup of tea. But we probably should just like bring them along and be like, does anybody want to play against these guys? Like, they're really kind of out there terrorizing the world. So anyway, lots of fun stuff going on. But let's talk Hexbane. You had the models and the cards. How about you give us a quick sort of first take once you got your hands on them?
So this often happens to me with warbands where I think, like, I'm not particularly interested in this thematically. It happened to me with Far Striders and I ended up falling in love with them. It was with these guys. Even like seeing the models, for some reason, like pictures of them, I was like, this is fine. But man, like just seeing them in person is pretty great. So I'm excited for people to get these, put them together. And they were not too bad. There's some cool poses. I think Bridget Axwold has a really awesome dynamic pose. She's really fun to like position on the battlefield and have her pointing her little volley pistol at somebody. For drama. And I'll give this following caveat to those of you who are perhaps if you're not listening to this on the day of its release, maybe you're assembling your Hexbane while listening to this. Have your A game on when you assemble Haskell Hexbane, the leader. He is a little bit of a challenge just in the way he comes together. So plan to dry fit just a little bit. Don't get the glue on, especially in kind of the first few stages. It's just one of those things where a lot of pieces have to kind of slide by each other in just the right way.
My goodness.
And then there's things that are kind of poking out and you don't want to press hard on those. Otherwise you'll, bend something. So I successfully did it, but it took a kind of 1 or 2 false starts before I stuck the landing. So that's the others were much easier, but Hexbane himself was a little bit of a challenge, but he looks great.
Nice.
And I'm going to have to remind myself how to paint fire. So, that's the figs. Was pretty happy with them.
Nice. Shall we run down the warband quick before we jump into some of the first impressions we had of how we thought they would work?
Yeah, we can do that. Again, if you want like the full blow by blow, we're going to have that in the blog format here. We're just kind of giving you an idea if you're somehow not familiar by the time you're listening to this.
Yep.
We'll go. So I can start out with Haskell Hexbane, the boss man himself.
Yep.
He is a hunter. He has a move of 3, 1 block for defense, only 3 health. Very concerning. And on his uninspired side, he has just 1 attack profile, and that's range 3, 3 fury, 1 damage with Grievous. Not going to set the world on fire with that as much as he might want to. We'll get into the reaction in a second, but I think we want to kind of cover some of these fighters first a little bit. If he inspires, he turns that Grievous into a permanent 2 damage. And then he gets his torch lit. So he has a range 1, 2 smash, 2 damage Grievous. So Grievous all over the place here. They give them the potential to get to 3, but it's only a 2 dice attack on that backside. So I can say that in our game, I don't think I ever even thought about using that on him. But there are reasons that you might. We'll get into those later. So,
and how does he inspire, by the way?
Oh, great point. He inspires if his attack action takes an enemy fighter out of action, which when you're 3 Fury, 1 damage grievous can be a little bit of a tall order.
Yeah, it's a little bit of work there.
Yeah.
I will say, maybe it's easier to do it as we go, but my first impression when they just showed this guy, I was like, man, this is going to be rough. Like, getting kills with this guy is going to be so tough. Like, you're just going to have to like set the kills up ahead of time or have small fighters to pick off, which maybe that's the idea. But
Yeah.
First looking at him without being able to see the inspired side, I was like, this is going to be really bad. And then I saw the inspired side and I was like, he's actually like, that's fine. If you can get him inspired, he's doing work. 3 range, 2 damage,
right?
Any number of dice, you're doing all right.
Yeah.
Next fighter, I guess I can run down Amos, his sort of bodyguard guy here.
Yeah.
So Amos Duncaro, he's the big axe guy. Also 3 speed, 1 block, 3 health. So even the big brawler guy does not have 4 health. So this is kind of, if you couldn't guess at this point, none of them have more than 3 health.
Yeah.
So they're a little bit of a fragile warband.
Yeah.
He's got his great axe, which is only reach 1. I have seen some speculation that it's going to be reach 2. It is not. 2 smash, 2 damage. So he's very just kind of average, actually. I kind of expected this guy to be more of your bruiser. I think he's just there to take up space, kind of, and be a threat. He is a brawler. I should have said that. All of the humans in the warband are hunters, so we can just get that out of the way. If an enemy fighter uses an attack action to target Haskell Hexbane, he will inspire, which is pretty nice. And he has reassuring presence. So if he is within 2 hexes of another friendly hunter, and that hunter is the target of an attack, he counts as supporting them. So he just supports from an extra hex away, which is nice.
Yeah.
And then when he inspires, he does go to 3 smash and cleave. So he is quite accurate once he is inspired.
But no extra damage.
No extra damage. So everybody is like capping out at 2 with potential 3 if you can roll crits, which like... I don't necessarily feel super good about that, but it's not terrible.
Yeah. I'll tell you somebody who can actually get to 3, even if it's just once per round.
Yeah.
Without help is Bridget Axwald. Bridget is really living on the edge. So she is, as you said, a hunter. She is 3 move, defends on 1 dodge, has 2 health. That is bargain basement level defensive stats. She has dual axes, which is range 1, 3 fury, 2 damage attack, a volley pistol, and this is the important one. That's range 3, 2 smash, 1 damage, but it has the volley rule. And the volley rule is that the first time you make this attack action in each round, if the target is adjacent to this fighter, you can pick one. You can add a dice, or you can add +2 damage. So she can spike to 3, which is pretty crucial. When she gets a lot out of inspiring, and to inspire... Haskell Hexbane has to be inspired. So there's a potential for her, if Haskell dies before she inspires, she's going to have a hard time getting there, i.e. impossible without power card help. But her inspired side, her volley pistol switches from 2 smash to 3 fury. It retains that same volley rule, so either an extra dice or an extra 2 damage. And it also gets cleave. So... pretty good. And then she actually has one of the best scything attacks in the game. It's a 3 smash, 2 damage scything with her dual axes.
It's quite good.
Yeah, that's right up there with the very top on scything attacks. So pretty cool. It's going to be easy to lose her early, but she can really do some things if she can find a way to hang around.
Yeah. I do think, and we'll see this with Pock, the next fighter here as well, but none of them ever go above 3 move. And I think that is something that definitely is probably going to come up in their gameplay, going like beyond what happened in our game.
Yeah.
But so Pock, the last human, he's a funky looking fella. So he is 3 move, 2 block, which is pretty nice, and just 2 health. So you do not want him getting pinged at all.
Funny you should mention that.
Yeah, well, and he's got his crossbow launcher. It's sort of a strange name, because that makes me think that it launches crossbows, but maybe that's just me. It's range 3, 2 smash for 2 damage. It's pretty nice for a ranged attack.
That's pretty great.
It's got knockback 1, but it's also got this weird rule called reload that says he can only make one of these attacks per phase.
As previously seen on Storm of Celestis.
Yep. Yeah. So it's quite good, but he only gets to do it once.
Yeah.
So it's okay. There was a part of me that thought, hey, maybe this should be something you should always be able to do, because it doesn't seem like he's going to do that much. But in retrospect, I think that might be too strong, so it probably works out.
Yeah, there's some connection with some other rules that might make that a little bit rough.
Yeah.
One adjustment to consider when you're thinking about some of these defensive profiles, especially on Pock or Inspired Bridget, is that if they can hang out close to Amos, they've got that one extra support, since they are hunters, which makes them a little bit better. Yeah,
multiple dice with support is really good. Yeah. So he also doesn't get a ton out of inspiring, but his inspire is that if either one of the dogs is out of action, he will inspire. The dogs sort of go along with him. Once he is inspired, he goes to knockback 2 and 3 smash on the crossbow launcher. He does actually have a range 1 attack, but it's 2 smash 1 damage, and that does not change it's 2 fury on the first side. Wow, that's really bad. Didn't come up in our game, surprisingly enough.
Nope.
And then I guess I'll just quickly say, since the dogs kind of go with him, the dogs are both 4 speed, 1 dodge, 2 health, with a 2 fury attack with 1 damage. If one of the dogs goes out of action, the other dog will inspire, so similar to Pock.
Or if Pock goes down, they'll both inspire.
Yes, it does say that. Yeah. And when they do inspire, they get 1 more fury and 1 more dodge. But the important thing about the dogs, they have a cool reaction. What is it called? Loyal Hound.
Yeah.
So Loyal Hound is really cool and really annoying. And that after a friendly hunter makes a move action, so that could be just a move or a charge, then this fighter gets to make a move action.
Yep.
You can figure out what to do with that, but it is really good.
Yeah. Having just played a whole lot of Cunning Crew, which has a similar thing where you can trigger extra moves, man, that is great. And this is I would say it's in many ways much more flexible than that, because they don't have to be anywhere near the hunter that's doing it. They can just keep going. Like I think at one point I had moved one of the dogs 2 or 3 times.
3, yeah.
I think Rat Spike was just like running all over the place. It was pretty great. So yeah, that's important. And there's one other rule which is pretty crucial, and this one doesn't have a particular name, but it's that one, they cannot be hunters, which is actually this warband might be busted if they were.
Yeah, that'd be really, really gross.
Yeah. Especially since if you made them both hunters, they could just move infinitely. They would just react after each other moving.
Yes, that's true.
But also the first one of the dogs that dies gives up no bounty. So
yes.
Rat Spike only gives up bounty if Grot Biter is out of action, and vice versa, which I really love. That it's a really small touch, but I think it's great. It lets you be more risky. It lets you play more thematically with them. And that was really fun.
Yeah. And it effectively, so there's still 6 fighters, but it sort of effectively means they really only count as being 5, which is really nice for like keeping the glory bleed down. And then they just have one more rule, which is universal to all of the hunters. Do you want to just run that one down quick?
Yeah, and this one's pretty important. It is called Price of Victory, and use this after a friendly hunter is dealt damage that would take them out of action after the out of action check. Give this fighter 1 upgrade from your hand, or remove 1 charge or 1 move token from this fighter. Do not spend any glory points when you play that card. So you can basically, if one of the 4 hunters dies, you can play out an upgrade for free, or you can remove a move or charge token. And this triggers when they're dealt enough damage that would kill them. So you can actually, this happens from attack actions. This happens from if an enemy uses, suffocating mists to pop you. It happens if you have an action, like like Kishitaka can ping somebody. But it also will trigger on lethals. So if you get driven back into a lethal, or if you're feeling real crazy, choose to walk into a lethal, it'll trigger on friendly gambits. So if you are, huffing that Reaver dust and you go with, what was it, like Burning Rage? What was the...
Burning Wrath.
Burning Wrath. If you pick that up and kill one of these guys with that, that'll trigger this ability. So it's very flexible as far as that goes. And what's important is that I love that it's 2-sided, right? So if you send your important fighter in early, like someone that you've got a couple upgrades on or something like that, often people will say, well, that fighter is done for the round, I'm going to ignore them. I'll just go clean up these other very low wound fighters. But if they do that, then you can peel charge tokens off of that first fighter. Now, if they say, okay, well, actually, I got to still worry about this guy, instead of going after the other ones, then if they do manage to kill your particularly good fighter, you get a head start on the follow-up ones. Your second wave gets to jumpstart you. They if you had an upgrade in hand, you can get it on them. So lots of flexibility, and I think it makes for some more difficult decisions from the other side of the table, which is always a bonus.
Definitely does. We can talk some more about how those decisions play out while we run down this game.
Yeah.
So we played one game. We did not have time to do a best of 3, but I think we got a good feel for how they work. Mm-hmm. We played your Hexbane into my Stalkers.
Yeah, we figured it'd be good to play against something that you're pretty familiar with. You've been playing some other things recently, but
it would have been a weird matchup if I'd played Reavers, I think.
Yeah, it would have been insane. But and actually, I guess it's even worth mentioning. I didn't mention this with the reaction, but their reaction with for when one of their hunters dies, it happens during the attack action at a specific time during. So it does not block the after attack action or after activation window, which is pretty important and would have been important if we had played them into Reavers, because there's some things that trigger off of that. So
that's very true.
And worth it for your own things, because you could use this to trigger the Price of Victory thing and also still get the Dark Sacrifice off or something like that if you
it'd be good.
Anyway, so that's the matchup we picked. We thought you knew that warband well enough that there wouldn't be too clunky, and they're also a warband that's relevant in the meta right now.
Yes,
so
very relevant.
Yep.
Maybe not like top tier, but they're good right now.
I don't know. It'd be there. Some people who would make an argument for it. So
they're really good. I don't know. They're up there. Well, we can quibble about.
We can agree that. Yeah. And I had to make a deck, and we decided to go with championship for this. There's I don't know. We thought we'd take that spin on it, since I think a lot of people are interested in that. And as always, if you want to get that Rivals content, I think a good place for you to go, and I don't know how fast they'll have something out, but is the Battle Mallet podcast. Yep. So I'd expect some good stuff from them on this Rivals deck without too much delay after this. We'll see.
Yeah.
We're actually going to use our next episode to kind of get into the deck I built. Give you a chance to kind of pick apart the choices, me to express some regrets or points of pride with the way I went with it. So we're not going to break it down fully here. But I'll just say, in general, I looked at it and I saw a few things. I liked that you had that extra movement. I thought there were some chances for additional accuracy. I considered some routes with support because the dogs are easy to get in. I just wasn't sure how long they'd stay alive.
Yep.
But the one thing I was confident in was that I was likely to lose a lot of guys. And so I went with Pure Carnage, which was a nice dovetail with our previous episode. So
Yeah.
you know that we're comfortable in our wheelhouse if we're getting Pure Carnage back in the mix. So
It's actually a really good card. Like, if you've got a lot of fighters, it's just, I don't know. But anyway.
Yep. And that was it. We set up, this is played via webcam. So you had all manner of proxies to try and keep track of what was going, because we've always got the one.
Only the one set of the models. So
yeah. And that was it. We jump in. Let's see, we rolled off and
for boards,
yep, quibbled it back and forth. I think Hexbane won the roll off, and I considered saying, like, trying to make your inspire difficult by stealing more of the objectives, like having 3. And I decided that just with the placements being the way they were, it was going to be more important to make sure that I was able to place aggressively. I was really worried about the move 3 with this warband, that if I got stranded. So I wanted them all to be able to, and there's a lot of fighters, so it kind of changes the boards that are available to you. You have a little bit of advantage that you have enough ranged fighters that they can be a little bit back. Like Quiet Pock can still be relevant from 6 away with his move 3 and range 3 attack.
Yep.
That all said, I decided, in fact, that I would let you have the extra objective and I would place the boards.
So we kind of knew what you were thinking about in terms of placing your models. What were you thinking about in placing your objectives?
So I did put in, the only real thing was I wanted to try to make it a little bit more challenging for you, but also I was looking to be able to score horrors in the dark. I thought that was an easy one to score with the dog. So I did a little bit of placement with that to kind of set that up. And then on impulse, I ended up putting down, I think, an extra cover, just figuring that my defensive profiles were not great. Maybe it would help, but it probably helps you more than me. So in retrospect, I might not do that again.
Yeah. And so I was actually doing pretty similar hex placements. The deck that I have right now for Stalkers does most of the flip things. Shockingly enough. And so I wanted to have some hexes just across the line so I could also score horrors in the dark, but also have access to a number of objectives near the middle of the board, so I didn't have to like stretch the warband too thin, and then have easy access to flips. So everything kind of ended up in the middle, which in retrospect was probably not that good for me, but I thought it would mean I'd have easy scores to start the game.
Sure. I didn't feel super great about the objective placements once they were down. I did feel good about my fighters. Part of that was because I totally forgot that Amos doesn't provide a defensive benefit to the dogs. So I had him shouting encouragement at the dogs who were like, what are you doing, dude? We only listen to Bach. So that was a little bit of a whoops. My main goal was just to set up where Clacktrock couldn't just run up and one-shot Haskell, because I didn't want to lose him immediately. I figured he was going to be vulnerable at some point, but I'd rather lose almost anyone else. So
yeah. And so, speaking of Clacktrock, when we roll off for the start of the game, I won the roll off, and figuring that I wanted to be able to get onto objectives, and also figuring that I was going to get shot at, I decided that I would start and take the first action, even though usually I would pass on the first activation so I can be reactive. I think overall that's not a bad decision here. It didn't work out. So I charge in with Clacktrock. He can get onto an objective hex and be adjacent to Amos. So I figure, hey, I could get a kill here and be on an objective in enemy territory. Feels good.
I think this is actually a pretty decent thing, because if you inspire and all of a sudden you're 2 block in cover, gotten objectives.
Yep.
So you're a little bit closer to Inspire. You're helping yourself on objectives. I had no complaint with this at all. I thought this was actually a pretty strong play.
So the club misses, which
Yep.
has been pretty par for the course for my Clackchalk lately. He just does not land his club attacks very often, but he landed his bite on 1 Fury, so that, there you go. So I do end up getting inspired, feel pretty good that at least I got the inspiration, even though I don't have the kill. Drive Amos back so he doesn't get free attacks back at me. And that is my first turn. I don't score anything there, I don't believe.
No.
And so I'm just sort of set up now with a charged Clackchalk who is pretty unappealing as a target now.
Yeah, it looks terrible. And my guys without upgrades are not really raring to go as far as accuracy things go. I had a hand with 4 gambits. There was several pushes in there and an accuracy boost and only 1 upgrade. So I was like, like price of victory for cheating an upgrade out. It's only going to have 1 chance to trigger in this first round. I did mulligan Pure Carnage away and ended up drawing into a hand that was everything to prove, Sudden Revelation, and Contest to Equals. So I had a triple surge hand. I was like, this feels pretty good.
Yeah.
And then the dice just ended up being where Contest to Equals just stared at me, and and even everything to prove, because you got the bite through. I was like, well, Amos isn't going to give it up. We'll see. So. I'm looking at Clackchalk being like, no, thank you. He's done for the round. Maybe I can just ignore him. Like I got away with 1 here. So I have a chance to send Pak forward. Pak runs up, shoots a crossbow at Kishitaka. And I made a mistake here where I had a chance to play the accuracy bow, like you stand accused, which is the one that is, pick a target. There is a +1 to hit that target until they end an activation in your territory at the end of the round.
Yeah.
So there was no reason not to play it here. I think I was like maybe trying to not, I don't know what I was thinking, but but Pak runs forward and one of the loyal dogs runs up and grabs onto Kishitaka's leg so that he can't get out of the way of the grenade crossbow. And I plonk him 1 and felt pretty good.
And I felt pretty bad.
So I had Kishitaka within 1. And on top of that, I had maneuvered. I had Pak on a hex and Rat Spike on a hex, and so I was able to score Sudden Revelation in that power step. So get a glory right out of the gate, and get some damage on an important fighter. So feeling pretty good.
Yeah. At this point, I make a play. So I'm looking at my options. Targets don't look great. I do want to go after Haskell.
We're going to get a lot of hate tweets. It's Haskell.
Haskell, yes.
Yep.
Yes, Haskell. But I'm like, okay, I could go after him with like Wachi, who'd then be in like super danger, because he's got Bridget and Amos is still lurking around. And so it's like, okay, 2 wound guy can't kill him anyway. So charging in feels bad. Autopodal could maybe put a token on him, but then he'd be in range to shoot me back. So looking at Pak, I thought Pak had 3 wounds, but he only has 2.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, okay, the 2 block guy who's standing in cover, I think I'll just try and take care of this now. So I used Kishi's special ability that lets him just put a damage on somebody. So I was like, okay, Pak, you're just taking 1. And so then it's like, okay, so you set him up with 1 damage. Now what? Well, I probably dumped too many power cards, but I used Confusion to get him back onto a cover hex. And then I use the, what's it called?
Confusion and then Suffocating Mist.
Suffocating Mist, that's the one. And then I put another damage on him there to get the kill in the power step, which is like, okay, kind of, dragging a little bit there because I just had to burn 2 pretty valuable power cards. But I was worried that a 2-block fighter in cover would be pretty hard to move. So I take the free kill when I can get it.
And in retrospect, now that I think about it, Clackchalk had been on a cover hex
Yes.
next to him on a gloom token, and so this confusion actually moves Clacktrock onto an objective. So that's actually a
yes.
powerful
Yeah.
play.
That was a big deal.
Yeah.
So still some profit there. Off of the kill, though, you get to apply.
Yeah, I throw down the Charmed Horseshoe, and this is a +1 dice at any range for accuracy, and also gives Ensnare. This is kind of a weird thing because I got it for free. You didn't know this at the time, but I didn't actually have anything else to spend my glory on.
Oh,
so because I had the other cards were all gambits. But I was like, yeah, that's fine. Like it'll if I draw into stuff next round, I'll be well set up for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, throw that on Haskell, and all of a sudden that's feeling pretty good. He's 4 Fury. Like,
4
all right,
Fury
I can do
and
this.
Snare with Grievous.
4 Fury and Snare, sure. And I was kind of setting this up where I was like, if I can get that 2 damage on Kishi, I've got a way to get Haskell up to throw some damage in. I do that on my turn. I actually do play the accuracy boost, which I neglected to help Pock out with last round.
Pock was fine. Pock had it.
Yeah. Well, then Haskell comes in and he's thrown 5 Fury with a single support into 2 dodge. Feels pretty good. I throw the 5 dice and I only get 1 success. I'm like, man, that is rough. You roll your 2 and you're like, oh, I got the dodge. And I was like, oh, no, you didn't. So.
Yeah, it felt bad. Forgot that the horseshoe also gives Ensnare, which feels bad. So that inspires your leader, which also inspires Bridget.
Yep. And that's big because Bridget is all of a sudden much better protected. So
feels real bad.
There was a little bit of maneuvering here. I think you were gearing up. You put a speed boost on Wachi. I think you were eyeing up an objective kind of deep in my territory.
Yes.
And honestly, I was I didn't see this. I didn't recognize that as a thing you were hoping to do. But I wasn't sure exactly what was going down. I thought maybe Amos was going to get killed by Wachi's spear. So I used Swarming Advance while I still had the chance. A card I kind of liked because the dogs could get up in enemy territory easily, and pulled some fighters forward and accidentally blocked you off from getting to the objective you wanted.
Yeah, you walled me out, which felt like a good play on your part. It evidently was an accident, but so it didn't leave. So the double play for me was that I had Horrors in the Dark. I wanted to be on an objective in your territory, and Bridget was adjacent to that objective. So if I could run around into that objective, I could then try and stab her with the 2 damage spear, which would get me a kill.
Yeah.
Sort of a high risk play, but I felt like it was worth it because she's pretty dangerous. But since you blocked it off, I just kind of had to just take what was left, and that was just to run onto a cover hex that Pock was on to try and put some more damage out and pick up Horrors. So got the Horrors, did not hit the attack. Feels okay, but it's like, man, it's not why. Like, if I had known I wouldn't be able to make the run, I wouldn't have played the speed boost. So, ended up being a wasted power card, and I'd already burned 2 power cards, so I was down pretty much to nothing at that point.
Yeah, and I may have written a bad note in here. I think you may have actually landed this hit, but I had the by hook or by crook to reduce it to just 1 damage.
That sounds correct. I think I hit Amos and only did the 1.
I think you hit Haskell. Amos has already taken 1 from a bite. So
yes, that was why Amos had 1 damage. I was like, hard to keep track when you can't see everything on the boards. But yes, so not ideal for me. And Amos does get inspired because I was swinging at Haskell. So yes, I was swinging at Haskell.
And this, I remember thinking like, by hook or by crook, like at least I got to use it. I kind of was like, this doesn't seem super important. I'll just burn it out of my hand. It doesn't feel like the difference between 1 or 2 damage is that big a deal, but it kind of is, because you had a lot of 1 damage guys. Like you still had Autopottle. You still had, is it Talk who has the blowpipe?
Talk has the blowpipe. Yes.
Yep. So you still had a number of sources of 1 damage. And so it basically kept Haskell out of, the threat of being killed, which, which is pretty nifty, if I do say so myself. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And I had been thinking of burning a push on you to try and get you off of something. I forgot about Horrors in the Dark being a possibility. So I had a chance to have pushed Clacktrock off of there, but
Oh man.
but I held on to it, and it wasn't the worst play in the world to have done that, but
Yeah.
it was what it was. So I didn't want to use it early, and I ended up giving you that Horrors in the Dark that kept you in it. So all of a sudden we're at 1-1. Also, I continue to watch like chip damage land on people. I'm like, oh man, I don't know if Phil's ever going to get primacy at this rate.
Nope.
This everything to prove is looking a little grim because I actually had primacy at that point, and when I had scored the sudden revelation, I'd drawn into underdog, and I was like,
oh man.
But I was still, and then same thing where contest of equals kept on missing because we're each either landing attacks or you'd whiff and I'd roll a defense. So I still felt good looking at my hand, but it started to be a little less good than the initial like 3 surges appeared to be. But I still had Amos to go. Amos was looking around. He said, well, Phil's on 2 objectives. I've got somebody within like range for Amos to charge. I can bring a dog in and get extra support. I don't remember if I was on 1 or 2 supports, but basically I was able to bring the other dog in to stack up a little bit of extra help on Wachi. And now Amos is inspired, so he was coming in 3 smash supported and kills Wachi back off that objective, which is a big deal. It kept you away from that. So I don't know if at some point in this round you also scored instinctive tactics off the fight.
Yes, I managed to get just a rando push from Skittish in here to be able to pick up the extra reaction to score that.
Yeah,
I don't remember exactly when it happened. It didn't really matter. It was just have somebody within range to do it. I'm sure it was Wachi who did it.
Yeah, but at this point we're 2-2. But I do have a couple of kills under my belt.
Yeah,
which is feeling pretty good.
So, and very crucially, Kishi is already dead, and that ices me out of a couple objectives already. So, feels bad. So at this point, I am just hoping that I can get on some more objectives and start to just lay down a little bit more damage just to set up for the next round. So I move Autopodle up so that he can try and lock Bridget out for the rest of the round and be on the objective. And he's on 2 dodge, so being in cover kind of helps.
Yep.
So he moves forward, goes for the charge, but he needs crits and can't do it. So no hit on Bridget.
Yep. But you are on an objective, and this hypnotic buzz that I had saved is now actually pretty handy here.
Yep.
Because Autopodle wanders off the objective he just stepped onto, steps into a crowd with like double supports, and that also gives Bridget the opportunity to charge on. And she does not use her volley pistol because she doesn't need to. She's got her 3 smash Axe's attack fully supported. That's pretty high odds. Yep. Even into 2 dodge, and she scores another kill. So I've got 3 dead, primacy. So I'm sitting on 3 glory with primacy coming my way as well. Feeling real good. In my power step though, you delve with Clacktrock.
Yep.
And I totally forget that dominant position is a thing. I was like, I don't need to delve anywhere.
Yeah.
Like I'm feeling good. I forgot that I was trying to stop other things than just the inspire.
It's really too bad I wasn't playing making a statement.
Oh yeah, geez. So I give up dominant position for absolutely no particularly good reason, which ties it back up. I think we end up on 4-4 with me with 1 spent. And I also make a mistake here where I have enough people with chip damage on them. I end up hanging on both to everything to prove and underdog. I should have gotten rid of at least 1, maybe both.
Yep.
Contest of equals is fine to hang on to it. It's probably going to score at some point, but it felt like a great round that ended me on a on an equal glory footing, which is like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but there's a lot of time left, and I had very poor quality fighters to try and make up the difference.
Yeah, I don't know how Clacktrock feels about being told he's a
Well,
poor quality fighter, but
he's a very good fighter, I should say,
no,
I guess. But
he
he's
is,
only
but he's
one
only range
fighter.
1, right?
Yeah,
So this
one
is
range one fighter. So
yeah,
he's probably getting 1 or 2 attacks in.
yeah.
So we go to round 2. Things are tight. I believe you win the roll off here, but you give me the action.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got 3 fighters left. Talk and Shepik are both hanging out in my backfield. Clacktrock is up front on the objective, but can't make any attacks.
Yeah, I specifically gave you this because I didn't really care about the other 2, and Clacktrock was range 1 and not adjacent to anybody. So I was like, all right, I'll give Phil a kind of a nothing activation to start with. Make sure that if you have any pushes, that you don't have a chance to use them early to get Clacktrock into a position to start swinging, in that first and get more activations out of them. So
Yep. So forces me to wait on a Clacktrock. So I'm just sort of like thinking about, I'm like, do I just draw power card? Like, what do I do here? And I just figure, if I can just, any damage at this point is value. So with only 3 fighters, I'll take the free shot that I've got with Talk's Blow Dart. It's really bad, but it's like, maybe. But I miss. So sort of a nothing first activation, but it was sort of a bad spot to be in.
Yeah. And then I'm looking at it, I'm saying, well, he's in a bad spot and nothing has changed. So I'm not going to change the board state at all. I've got Haskell in range. I'll try and get lucky and push 4 Fury through on 2 block and cover. Not the most amazing odds, but if I do, I get 2 damage, and then all of a sudden Clacktrock is worrying about getting killed. He can't really operate with quite as much impunity, and it goes off. Haskell lands a hit, which is pretty sweet.
Pretty nice.
Yeah. Now it is heading towards your second activation. I'm feeling good because you're still down at your 3 fighters. You're still kind of in that same board position, but you have a chance now to change the board position.
I do, and I play center of attention so that I can get Clacktrock to be able to make some attacks without having to charge. So pull Amos back in, and Clack says, "Let's do this one more time."
And I think you get do you get Soundless Step on Clack as well here? So this is a rough combination. I go from like Clack is going to get 1 to like, oh, now Clack can swing. He's going to be able to step and swing. Like, oh boy.
Yeah. That's the idea anyway. So he's got Soundless Step, and he wants to do some work. But before he gets to go to work.
Yeah, I realized that I've got a chance. I've actually put Grievous Fighter's Ferocity on Haskell. It's a little bit wasted. It's a little unnecessary on him, except for the fact that I have their card that has him throw a stake. And I was like, well, you know what? I could get lucky and just lob a stake at Clacktrock. Throw. If I can roll a crit, then that's a 2 damage thing, and he'll have to roll a crit to stop it. So that's totally worth the gamble. It does not land, but it does finally trigger contest of equals. So that's worth it. Gambit card. Land glory cycle. So.
And it was something I was not prepared for at all. As soon as you played down the card, I was like, oh no, Clacktrock's just going to die here. After setting himself up to have supports for
right.
Haskell. So it was like... just praying that he doesn't die. And then the score off of that felt especially bad. But Clack did get his chance. He did get to try and club Amos again, and he did so very well. So gets his kill. Soundless Steps, staying in cover, I believe, but moving to be adjacent to be threatening again for the next round.
Yep. And I'm in an interesting position because you're actually in no one's territory. And one of the objectives I have in hand is it's a hybrid, but the caveat I'm trying to work towards is get all of your fighters into like if all enemy fighters are in the same player's territory, then I can score it for 2 glory. And I'm like,
Yep.
man, Clacktrock is in no one's territory, which is not helping me at all. So I'm hemming and hawing, and I think I feel like I'm in a position where I can kind of, if I hadn't given up that easy dominant position, then I'd be real sitting pretty. But Amos's death meant that I gave Iron Nails to Bridget, so she's got 3 fury, 2 damage, but she can also, she basically got a Tome of Offerings equivalent, so she's got an extra glory for a kill. So she's kind of eyeing up your backfield. I think she might have a line on, I can't remember if she's got a line on Tak or
Shepik, the
Shepik.
little shield bro with his club just hanging out.
And so I'm thinking here, like, I could do that. I could charge her away and also run a dog away, like, because there's a dog. Like, I could just start clearing out from Clacktrock. And if Clacktrock finds a way to kill somebody, like if he gets into Haskell and kill, then I can kind of reset Bridget and turn around and come back of it. After some hemming hawing, I decide, like, no, actually, I'll send Bridget in. I can get her up to 3 smash, fully supported on Clacktrock. Feels pretty good, but I don't quite seal the deal. So Clacktrock tanks this one, which this is the riskier play. This was the, like, if I can pull this off, the game is over. If I don't, then I've given you more targets, and now I'm in trouble.
Yes. So Clacktrock's now ready to go again, and he tries to take out Haskell, which you have the note here that I hadn't even considered at the time, but it would have been bad because if I had killed him, you would then get to pull that charge token off.
Yeah. Bridget would be back in play again.
Yeah, which is something I hadn't considered. I would have felt really bad if that had happened, because I was like in the operating mode that, like, score is low, score is close. If I can just keep getting kills with Clacktrock, I'll just catch up and then maybe outscore with some of these higher scoring end phase cards that I've got.
Yeah, and on top of everything else, I'm still holding on to underdog and everything to prove.
Yeah.
So you finishing with a kill, I was like, yeah, I mean, this actually could work out great. Bridget will get fired back up. I can send her off somewhere, and then I've got 3 glory worth of objectives that'll score off of the primacy going to you. But you stayed in character and missed this one.
Yeah, that's Clacktrock for you.
Yeah. Does try the bite, and the bite also
tries the bite.
Okay, yeah.
Bite is missing as well, but that's not.
Yeah,
that's the one that should be missing.
Yeah. Well, and that leaves Haskell with the opportunity to take, I believe at this point it might even be a 4 dice fully supported shot into Clack.
Yeah.
And that lands, and it drops Clack, and that we kind of commit to playing out the round, because the score is not drastically out of whack here, right?
Yeah.
Like, and again, it's a thing that you don't know, but I'm still looking at everything to prove an underdog, being like, God dang it, like this is a mistake on my part. I think it was fine to include him. I think, like, ditching him was probably the right play. So
for this matchup, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm, having played the lizards a ton, I know that even with just the 2 rando lizards, you can still score a lot of glory.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
So I just figure, I'll hang around in this. I'll see if I can pull something crazy off. So I go with Talk because he's got the blowpipe. I am trying to set up for what's it called? It is called Find a Path. So I'm trying to set up for Find a Path because I only need 1 fighter to do it. And I can use his skittish reaction to finally get into your territory. So I charge into no one's territory, take a shot because it's, again, just a free shot. I might as well if I was going to need to move forward anyway. But he is really inaccurate, so he misses again.
Yeah.
Which isn't surprising. It's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
But So he's just sitting there like getting ready to get punked. So I'm like, I guess we're putting Unfeeling Resilience on a 2-wound fighter and just hoping that you don't like spike for 3+ damage.
Yeah, and this is the thing where like I was previously, I was like, it's kind of a waste to have put in Fighter's Ferocity on Haskell because what is he? And here I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah, it actually matters now.
He's got a reason, and this actually gave me. I had an interesting decision to make here because again, the aforementioned, I think the objective is proof of guilt.
Yes.
I had to. You were in no man's land again. I was like, damn. So, and you still had Shepik back in your territory. So I'm like, I either have to kill Talk or drive Talk back into your territory in order to successfully do this. And I have one of the dogs is close enough to give me some help. So I'm about to take a 4 Fury supported attack. The crit is all that matters really for the kill because without the crit, there's not enough to kill.
Yep.
And so I do like I could get an angle where I could get the dog in to force a trap. And so I'm like, well, do I force the trap so that if I roll the crit, there's no way he can crit out? I was like, no, it's more important to get enough successes. Like I should run in, set the dog up to give me supports so that I have a better chance to like tie on anything and drive you back. And that's 2 glory that I'll get. And I can come back at it later and get the kill. I've got the whole round 3 to do that and not a lot of threats. And he's not got any chance to inspire, so his damage profiles aren't going to get better. So this is the way forward.
This is the way.
Yeah. The way is to run in and crit. So
just get the kill.
Yeah. Haskell continues on his tear. He accounted for Kishi, Clacktrack, and Shepik in this particular battle.
Yeah.
So
pretty rough.
Not messing around. His friends kind of set him up, like he didn't do it on his own. But
yeah, and that breaks my will at that point. It's like, nope, that's enough. And I know at that point that I don't have any route to scoring really anything else in the deck. So there was no real point to play anything out at that point. So I concede. Score was actually very close, but if we played out the 3rd round, I'm sure you would have been able to run away with some scores.
I because I had killed 5 of you and probably would have gotten the 6th. I was looking at pure carnage in the best way possible to get it, which is one of your own and 6 of the other. Yeah, exactly. I felt pretty good about the way forward. I guess we didn't really talk about your first impressions of this warband, but let's talk about them now and how they compared with what you thought. After having played a game, what do you think about them, and how does that compare to what you thought about them before you played the game?
Yeah. So my initial read on them after having gotten to look at all the fighters and the cards.
Well, I'm gonna interrupt because your initial read, you're kind of live texting me when I'd sent them. I photographed and sent them over to you, and I could almost even find your reply here.
Probably could, so usually when I evaluate a warband, I start by looking at the fighters because you kind of need to know what the fighters are doing to be able to start building your deck. So I'm like, okay, I look at all these fighter cards and I'm like, they're all pretty fragile. Attack profiles aren't amazing. They're really slow. They feel mediocre. It's like, they're really thematic, but there's a lot sort of that you have to do to make that work.
Yeah. I think you said have only looked at the fighter cards and they are worse than I would have imagined.
Yeah. Like I honestly, I expected more. I just thought they would be able to do more. Turns out that the way they do more is with their cards. So then after getting through all the cards, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like with free upgrades and the quality of these upgrades, these guys are going to be definitely aggro for sure. Probably trying to make the most of being able to shoot people. So I was really sort of afraid of just getting shot a lot. And I didn't really want to like have to position into spots where you were just getting take free shots. But as I mentioned at the beginning, I kind of ended up in that situation just because of my game plan. Like everything was sort of centralized in the boards, and it was like, oh no, like I'm walking right into this. It's the thing I didn't want to do. Hoisted on my own petard here. I want to be on hexes, and the hexes set me up to be shot.
Mm.
So in that sense, it kind of played out the way that I expected it to, and that you would just sort of move forward and try and shoot me and chop me up. But the thing I did not expect was how much the positioning and the dogs would play into making your mediocre attacks very good.
Yes.
The extra supports pretty much at will was really nasty.
And there were multiple attacks where I was like, okay, I got 2 successes, but the only successes were support successes.
Yeah.
And I know that's circumstantial, but there were plenty of attacks in this. There was like, this would have been a whiff if not for the supports that I'm getting right now.
Yeah. And in the process of the game, I was thinking about like, well, you know, I could take a dog out just to clear the board, but you don't get anything for killing the dogs.
Yeah.
And like, you only have so many actions, and you don't really want to be taking time. It's sort of like when a fighter has Omega's Offering out. It's like, ooh, can I really afford to take an action to kill a fighter that I'm not going to benefit from, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost better than that though, because it's different, right? Like, because at least with Omegas, you get something and you can buy upgrades. Here, you get
you can't even seed glory out of it. Yeah. So like, first activation of the game, I've got Clackchalk ready to go. There's 2 dogs that are super easy to hit, but like, I get nothing from doing that. Even if I hit, well, I mean, I guess if I hit them, I inspire, but like, that's not a lot. You don't get seed glory. You can't play upgrades.
Yeah.
It's pretty rough. It makes for some weird choices. It would inspire the other dog, which is not what you want either. And Puck, although he does. I mean, he's still pretty good without being inspired. But
he's okay. But that one shot he's going to take each round gets a lot more accurate.
A lot
3
scarier.
smash, 2 damage.
Yeah. So they put you in. I guess the thing I wasn't expecting was like getting put into lose situations in a lot of cases where it's like, it doesn't really matter what you do here, they're going to benefit in some way. Somebody inspires, somebody gets to remove a token, somebody gets an upgrade. Like, every time you hit them, they kind of get a little bit of a bounce in power to make up for it.
Sure. I can see that.
So decisions felt bad. I don't think I played the match very well, but like, because of the way I set up, I don't know that I could have really played it any differently either, which I would set up the board totally differently if I was going to play them again. I would want to try and sit back a little bit more. But yeah, they seem good. I would love to see them some more. There's a couple of different cards that I think make them really stand out, but what were your impressions after having played them before we dig into some card impressions?
So it was similar to you, where this should not have been a surprise to me, because again, as I've said several times now, I've played a lot of Cunning Crew lately, and being able to choose when you get an extra support has been real powerful with them. It was unsurprisingly good with these, and just the tricks you can do, where like, I can set up a trap, I can set up objectives. Like the dogs were, although they never actually made an attack, they felt kind of MVP-ish there. But what really drove home, and just the way the glory got scored and the way the upgrades came into my hand, getting the free upgrades was never that big a deal. I either had enough glory or didn't have enough upgrades for that to matter. But at the crucial turning points, it felt like, okay, like I do, like you were talking about lose, and I'm like, I feel like I'm kind of win-win, because if Clackchalk comes in, if he managed to get Haskell, that's cool. I've got 3 glory worth of objectives to score off that, and Bridget's going to fire back up. And then we're back in business, baby. And we can make some headway with her. If he misses, then great. Haskell's got a real good gun going right now, and I can keep that flying. So it felt good to have a backup plan and not be looking at that roll and being like, man, like please don't roll X. To say like, I think there's one of these scenarios which I slightly prefer, but I've got a good route forward no matter how these dice drop. So I had an absolute blast playing them. It's easy to say you had fun when you won, but it felt like it had a little bit of that Reaver vibe that we've talked about, where like losing people is not the end of the world. It had a God Swarmed vibe, which I like, where upgrades are kind of sneaking out. I don't know, where they have sort of upgrade tricks with them. Not exactly the same, but it just felt like some fun tricks, and it felt like they played thematically to themselves, and that was pretty great. So
yeah, they feel like a very well-rounded warband, I think. I don't know that they have like any one thing that feels like, oh man, they're going to be better than everybody at this thing. But like, I don't really see like maybe their speed is their weakness, but
100%. But but also there you got some. You have 3 of them are carrying ranged weapons, which is going to help some with that. So
helps a lot. It's sort of like how Thundrix, the speed isn't really an issue. You just make people come to you, and then you got range 3 attacks. So
yeah.
And speed 3 with range 3 is even better than speed 2. So there you go.
Yeah. So I think we're going to be talking more about the deck I built and what all went into that and what changes we might make next episode. But I think it's worth talking about some of the standout cards, and we can maybe focus on the ones that were maybe a standout in this particular game, or ones that we thought would have made a difference if they'd come up.
So, I mean, I suppose we can start with objectives, because that's, I think, just always a strong place to start. And the one, I mean, that sealed the deal, not to say that you're just killing all my warband wasn't enough, but Proof of Guilt. Yeah. This, and you mentioned a number of times you were like working towards this. This card feels really good. I think this feels like a staple end phase. It's for 2 glory, so that's really the bar, right? Is end phases, you hope that they're scoring you 2 unless they're just ridiculously easy. And so this is nice to have in there, and since it's faction, you can always run it. And it's, I think, I could be wrong, I think it's the first 3 mode hybrid.
That's a tough call. I don't if listener,
somebody
if you
fact
think
check
of one,
us.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say that I think that's true. And so yeah, there are 3 ways to score this, and they're all decent. They're different, but having the 3 modes, I think, makes this pretty reliable. So you can have each surviving enemy fighter have no move or charge tokens. That's sort of a weird one.
Yeah, that one's going to be the hardest of all of them, because almost always somebody's going to do something.
Why would, I guess it has to have at least one fighter who hasn't moved. Okay. That's going to be really tough, actually. There's almost no way that's happening. But then the other 2, so maybe my three ways to score this is a little premature. But the other ways is each surviving enemy fighter, at least one, in the same player's territory. So it's not even like just one, it's just either or, which is really nice, because then even if people are aggressive, you can score this because they charged into your territory, or vice versa. And then the final is to have scored one or more opponents have scored 6 or more objectives. So it sort of gives you that extra underdog almost.
Yeah, and then 6 is not an unreasonable thing. No. Like I think particularly if you went second in the second round, there's a real good chance you're going to score this between enemy surges, and it feels pretty. If you are not scoring it on that condition in round 3, you probably already won. If they didn't score 6 of their objectives, you're probably looking pretty good. And it's that sort of card that makes your opponent have to think about like, okay, like wait, do I need to send somebody into enemy territory in case I need to spoil that? And anytime you're providing additional mental tax on the opponent for positioning, that is
Always good.
helpful. Yep.
Were there any faction objectives that you were actively working towards in the game? I don't remember seeing any come up, but
so I didn't include a ton. Some of them I did have another faction end phase, but it's another pretty flexible one. And this is just it's lives well spent. Do you have 2 friendly hunters out of action, and have you scored 3 or more objectives?
Yeah.
And I like that because it was just like, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to lose some people, but I'm going to get objectives along the way. And like, this is just going to score for me. It feels like, something feeding into that pure carnage style. Style build there.
Very similar to Corn Cares Not.
Yep.
Just kind of do your game plan and it'll happen.
Yep.
And same amount of glory. So
yep.
Really nice.
Yeah.
In some ways it's actually easier. Which is, I don't know. There'll be matchups where it's less simple to score, but I think on average it's pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty good.
Yep.
Obviously, like you said, we didn't have actually a ton of the other ones in the deck. I think we can talk about some of the other standouts next time, but
mm-hmm.
Pretty interesting stuff, having 2 pretty solid end phases to go off of.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any gambits that you were feeling either particularly good about or that stood out to you during the game?
So I'll say that the only real, I'll say you stand accused, and I like I said, I misplayed it a little bit. I could have played it 1 round earlier to give Pac up to 3 smash.
Yeah.
And that would have put some pretty serious pressure on Kishi, because then you would have had to, if I played it 1 round earlier, land that hit, you're like, well, Kishi's on 1, and he's gonna keep on taking these extra hits or extra accuracy against him until I get him in enemy territory. And like, maybe at that point you decide, like, I don't know if I have time to sit back and do the ping. I might have to run forward and try to do that. And even then that's good, because all of a sudden you're running at Amos, you're running at Haskell, and they can kind of try to make you pay for such a brash maneuver.
Yeah, I like that one. I mean, at the very worst, it's just a determined effort, right? And
yeah, I thought it was solid. Potentially worse than that, because it's like, well, if they're in your territory, it does nothing, but it does. It lasts until they end an activation in your territory. So you'll always get at least 1 activation out of it, even if they're already in your territory.
Yeah. So you always can use it as just my next attack action has +1 dice, and you might be able to make it do a lot more than that, which is pretty scary.
At any range, which is very important for this board game, because you have some range 1 attacks that are important and range 3 attacks that are important.
Yeah. I don't know how impactful it was, but it certainly felt really bad in the game. Making a point. I kind of like card gambits. This is something they did in Shadeborn. Have a card like this. They can make an attack on a ploy.
Yep, the Shadeborn darts. I think we've seen it in just a couple other places. You've got Condemners. They've got like the headbutt attack.
Oh some weird stuff there. But this is nice because it's ranged, so you can kind of use it in a lot of situations, and there's nothing to say that it can't be modified. So if you already have a bunch of upgrades stacked, like, this can actually be pretty good.
Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, finisher, it has this caveat that says if you're adjacent and the target is vulnerable, you can get +1 dice and cleave. So it's like guarantee they're done. But like, I don't think that's going to come up.
Not too often. If you're relying on that, you're got problems, because what you're doing is you're charging in, knowing that you're going to leave them vulnerable and hoping to have enough on this.
Yeah.
I think I think having seen it, I'm like, that might actually be slightly better than I realized. Just because sometimes, you'll have a vulnerable fighter will come charging in on someone else or something like you'll just end up positioned, be like, oh, well, here we go. I can just use this and save myself an activation.
You happen to be.
Or you use this if you are fighting someone like, I don't know, Ripa, and they narrow escape you. You say,
Oh,
you got
yeah.
out of there with one.
Hey,
Let me
I'll
take
finish.
one more try at it to finish you off.
That's actually pretty great. I didn't think about that one.
Yeah.
So I like it. I think that's a card that it makes a lot of sense. Attacks, even inaccurate attacks that you get to make out of action, pretty solid. There's tricks you can do with that. So I like it, and it definitely put some fear in Clacktrack. That's for sure. All right, so that is a couple gambits. They've got some other good ones, but we'll save those and some upgrades. I gotta say, I don't like that horseshoe.
Yeah. It was kind of ridiculous that, it was like on this 5 dice, and that the one piece that mattered was that I happened to have ensnare,
Yeah.
Um,
But I mean, it comes up like,
oh,
so
man.
say you've got that, and your opponent, for whatever reason, has boosted themselves to 3 dodge. There's a non-insignificant chance that ensnare is now very important.
Significant. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
man, it's just so good. +1 dice, no range restriction, and ensnare. Like,
Yeah.
what? And I mean, technically it's restricted to hunters, but like that's effectively an unrestricted accuracy boost.
Yeah.
So wow, it's good.
I think this is a card that you couldn't print in most warbands, right? Like,
yeah, no.
If you had any, like, if you were in, I don't know, like Crushes or a Stormcast warband or something like that,
insane.
like like it'd be nuts. But that's because there you're Voltroning somebody with a whole lot of wounds. Here, like, your biggest guy is 3 wounds, one shield for defense, and so you can Voltron somebody up, but they're more or less one attack action away from like getting dropped. And so I think that's why they can get away with some of these upgrades. And there's we'll talk more about them in a second or in the next episode. But it's they have some hot fire upgrades. It is nuts. So
that one especially just kind of kept like throughout the game. You're just like, well, 4 dice on these range attacks. It's like, oh my goodness gracious, you're just blowing holes in my warband. And I think it felt especially bad because I was to the point where most of my fighters were getting killed in one shot.
Right.
Which I know some warbands that won't happen, and it will probably feel less good. But like, I think just +1 dice accuracy on an upgrade is always pretty solid, and since you do have the range attacks, you have the opportunity to make that +1 dice come from more than just a charge, which is big.
And it pairs well nicely because I think with as much range as they have, there's a good chance they're including Fighter's Ferocity. Haskell's got a couple of grievous attacks, one on his uninspired, one on his inspired. Like those things kind of combine together to get you into a position where extra dice give you the more chances of getting that crit and getting the damage bump.
Well, I think do you have any other upgrades that you want to just call out quick, or should we save it for next time?
Only one we'll say is one that I played out, and this was Cold Iron Nails. It didn't actually trigger because Bridget didn't land a kill with it, but it felt, it felt nuts on her because she's got a great scything attack, and so if she can get in a crowd and scythe the crowd with this, like, woo, she can do some. This is a we should say it's for range 1. You have it's basically a Tome of Offering, so you get an extra. You can pick one of 2 things. You can either get an extra glory for the kill, or very interestingly, something we haven't seen before, you can prevent that fighter from being raised, which got to take. That's right now. I think that's only affecting Sepulchral Guard and Exiled Dead, because I think those are the only ones that actually say raise on them. The other resurrecting warbands.
Yes, I think you're right. Actually, I don't think that they've changed Grimwatch or They may have errated it. I don't think they did, though.
No, I haven't seen it there. So
Okay.
I'm curious to see whether they will. But at the very least, I mean, it's great even if it didn't have the don't raise caveat. It is really horrifying to those warbands if now that it does.
Yeah.
She could come in and
That
knock down a ton of zombies and say, like, you don't get to have those back. Those ones are gone for good.
Yeah, that is hot fire against the zombies.
Which is important because against the zombies, the price of victory is never going to trigger because it's a reaction. And so
Right.
unless they're getting you outside of a dance action, which is relatively rare, you are not going to be able to use what is kind of a linchpin of your
Yeah, I mean, I guess like you said, you could trigger it yourself. That'd be weird, though.
right.
Might be crucial that you do it, but I don't know. It feels like a strange play. It'll be interesting to see if this becomes like a weird roadblock to winning tournaments with the zombies, though, because like I have to imagine if somebody gets this out on an accurate attack, that's pretty much wraps for the zombies, because like not being able to raise them pretty much breaks their mechanic.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that matchup pairs up. So
Yeah. Well, it was exciting. It was a matchup that I hope to play again soon. Not being able to play them out at the local league yet. Meant that it was like, oh, we gotta actually wait to be able to play these guys again.
Right, we're going out. Well, you won't be because you're going to be out of town, but I'll be going out this Thursday, which will be 2 days before they are, before they're allowed to be in the wild, sort of thing. And I'm like, man, it'd be really fun to kind of show them off. And I'm really excited. I had such a fun time with them, and I'm gonna have to build something else.
Yeah. Maybe just run out something you've played before. Don't think too hard about it.
Yeah, I'll see.
All right. Anything else before we wrap it up here?
No, I think that does it. I hope folks enjoyed getting this kind of different take rather than a card by card here, which again, if you want, we've got those up, and there's plenty of other creators who are going to be doing those too.
Yeah.
But just trying to give you some of that practical experience with them.
Absolutely. All right. Well, as always, if you want to get in touch with us, if you think that we missed something, if there's something you want to call out about our takes, you can reach us at WTHcast on Twitter or whatthehexcast@gmail.com. As for checking out our other content, which is much more relevant in this episode because of that blog post, you can head on over to themortalrealms.com. We've got all sorts of Age of Sigmar content up there from all the different Age of Sigmar games. And that is also where you can find Davy's blog posts. You've actually got a couple other blog posts up there as well. That's just a couple of your warband rundowns, right?
Yeah, that Hexodus series. I am in the process of writing up the Cunning Crew. Obviously, there's a whole lot of stuff going on down now, so I can't promise. I'm kind of hoping that it'll be available for people before this episode drops, just to tide people over. I don't think people are going to be particularly interested once once these guys are out. But I can only do what I can do. I gotta do some packing too.
Boy.
Yeah.
All right. So coming up next, we definitely know we will be talking this deck that Davy built. We'll sort of run down the process of building a deck for Hexbane, and we'll talk through some more of their cards and some of the decision points about what you're trying to do when you build these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a flavor text for today?
I do. This shouldn't be too tough for you, mostly because I'm really poking in the eye with it. But
man,
lucky, perhaps. Effective, certainly. Haskell Hexbane.
Well, I know which one it is, and I hope to never see it again. The lucky horseshoe,
charmed horseshoe. There
horseshoe.
You go. Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know. It like we have restricted much worse single accuracy upgrades. I'll just leave it at that. Recommended listening for today. What do you got?
I've got Burn the Witch. It's by Radiohead from Moonshaped Pool.
Very nice. for What the Hex. I've been Phil.
I've been Davy. And I think I went looking for. No, I'm going to skip that. I picked a board.
It was a board, yeah. And I also picked a board because I was not. I didn't have anything in mind, so I threw something down that gave me sort of a mix of deployment locations, and we're kind of off to the races.